I put the wrong song, but I was kind of feeling it at the end. So sorry if it was a little bit different than usual, but still kind of a vibe. Not gonna lie. Pretty weird day, to be honest. I am going to share my screen here and we'll get right into it. But as we can see from just a daily perspective, from our daily chart right here, we fully reversed the week, right? I'll bring in the weekly opening price just so we can have a better look here. And as we can see, we had a beautiful classic buy week forming. And then Tuesday, the last day of trading of the month of August, just said, fuck you. That is the best way I can put it. We had a nice run lower of 364 points. And if we go down the time frames here, we'll notice it was just a trending day. Now, as I explained last time when I was talking about trending days, I was talking about the importance of returning to the opening price, right? So a day that just runs out of the open, I'm going to look for a reversal to then return to that opening price. That's what I call a consolidation day, search and destroy day. You know, you can call it, what's the other word for it, for the candles, a doji. You can call it whatever you want, but that's the profile I'm looking for. But on days like today, why do I expect it to keep trending rather than reverse at New York Open? Well, we didn't return to the opening price on NASDAQ, but we did on ES. And that is in itself a form of SMT in relation to premium and discount, which is why these opening prices are so important, right? So for me, it made sense to look for a trending day due to that opening price. We returned to it. Also, there was a lot of SMT. Can we see it on the 15-minute? Yeah, we can. So we had SMT right here at the swing that formed London high. We had a lot of SMT throughout the day as well, but the main important one that stands out for me is definitely this one. I think there was also, let me just do this. There was also SMT in relation to this, probably on a lower time frame here. Yeah, we can see it. And right here on a lower time frame as well, we'll find some SMT. All that to say, a lot of divergence at the highs. The opening price was revisited on the S, and we already expanded very aggressively. Also, the last confirmation is the 8:30 news. This is the first news of the day. We also had 10 a.m. news, but it was not high impact news. It was the revised consumer sentiment. For me, the prelim consumer sentiment, which is the first numbers they send out, are important. The revised usually don't do much. So I don't treat it as a high impact news, and so didn't need to wait for 10 a.m. to get there. I did talk a little bit about that in a futures chat this morning, but we'll go more in depth about it right now. What I did want to say is that our 8:30 news, our high impact news event that we were looking at, had a Judah swing higher. We anticipate news event to bring manipulation. And in this case, we had a beautiful swing higher, which just confirmed that we could then look to short. For me, looking at the open, I was indeed looking for a short. If we go back to the 1 minute chart and we go right here, this is our 8:30 news. Also important to point out the levels from it, data highs and lows, but in this case, they weren't used for me. What I was really interested about, and I believe I have my indicator in bullish only mode right now. Yep. Let's just put it back to default so we can see all the breakers that were formed throughout the day. It's also important to point out this is something I have on my trading layout, and I'll bring it up just so you guys can see. Probably have a shit ton of drawings too. Give me a second here. Can you guys see this? Yes, you can. All right. So if we look right here and we look at my breaker block settings, you'll notice that these time filters are from 15 minutes before the session starts. Because I don't care if the breaker is formed a little bit earlier, as long as my unicorn entry comes at 9:30. So you'll see here on my trading layout, we can easily see this level right here. And that makes me think as well, let's bring in previous day high and low. Because as we see, previous day low was a very nice objective for us. I'll actually remove it from the indicator. I love this indicator when I'm trading, right? When I'm trading it. But the thing is, it's not too useful, in my opinion, in terms of review. You can use it, especially if you're just reviewing like daily profiles and such. But if you're trying to do a review like I am myself, I hate the auto scale feature that makes it so my high is all the way up here. I could bring in something that just like removes the lines if they are not met, but that gets it complicated for no reason. But this right here, this line we see is previous day low. So let me just mark it out as such. And yeah, let's just keep it like that for now. As I was explaining though, I like to bring my settings to one level before. If you want to be more precise, you can also go in there and do whatever timing you want. But I want to see the breakers that are formed, even if they are formed a little bit earlier, because they can still offer a unicorn entry. Now, just for the sake of cleanliness, since I explained I was bearish, I'm just going to put it in bearish mode so we can see only bearish. Now, if I'm bearish, I'm looking for shorts at the open. What am I going to be targeting? Well, I have a lot of different frameworks I can use. Of course, I don't have a London framework, trending day, disregard the highs. Don't have an Asian framework. I have two things. I have current low of day. Of course, I have the weekly open, which also brings other things that I have not showcased in a while now. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the weekly open and bring in my little guy right here. New week opening gap. So I have current low of day, I have new week opening gap, and I have previous day low. Now, are there other swing points? Especially what I like to do is go in the 15-minute chart, look at all the swing points. Yeah, there are plenty, but I'm not focusing on these. I'm focusing on clear objectives. And to be honest, I did not expect it at all to go all the way down to previous day low. All right, but that was my final objective. And of course, if it runs a lot, you can look to partial at these levels along the way. I always have these levels on my chart. And by these levels, I mean 15-minute swing points on my chart. But in case like today, I did not expect it to go all the way down there. Sorry I came in late. Did you touch up on the bearish bias since we inverted the daily SIBI? Yeah, I'll speak about it. From a higher time frame perspective, it made absolutely no sense in my book. I did anticipate a retracement and a continuation. That's what I was looking for. I was looking for a daily structure that would have given me a retracement to the order block, right? As you just said, we just inverted this fair value gap and then see some form of continuation, perhaps not even reaching previous day high, right? This is what I was anticipating for the day. It was last day of the month, but we fully reversed that. And when I open my charts, right, in the morning, and we've already done this, this is where I ran through Speakock, so I'll just ask you to listen to the recording. But I established that it was going to be a trending day and it was bearish, and I had all my confirmations to look for shorts. So because of that, the bias was bearish. And as we can see right here, you didn't have to wait long for your trade. Right at 9:30 here, we were in a bearish unicorn. Now, you guys know I say this quite often. I don't like to enter trades at 9:30. Let me actually bring ES with the same settings I explained. Hello. Why don't I like trading at 9:30? There's a lot of slippage, a lot of volatility that comes in at once in the markets with regular trading hours opening. So what do? I just wait a minute. I let this candle close, and if my idea is still valid, I'm entering on the next candle. So that's why this entry will showcase the opening price of this candle, because I did not wait for it to retrace back into the unicorn, and I also did not require it to retrace back into the unicorn. And my 3 PDRA stop loss, you might ask, what is it going to be? It's going to be as if my entry was up here. So now in this case, I have inversion fair value gap, order block, and this is the invalidation of the breaker. So I will not go further than this point. Had a nice 20-point stop, and as you can see, just to the current low of day, which we reached in a few minutes, right? Let's actually see, I'm curious, 6 minutes. Well, it offered 1.89. So yes, that was the first partial of the day in this case. And then, as I explained, had some clear objectives here at new week opening gap. I don't like using the high and low of the new week opening gap. I like seeing how we respect the quarters and more specifically the midpoint. Whenever it's a large new week opening gap, I bring in the quarters, but for a small one like this, we will focus solely on the midline, right? In this case, as you see, we showed respect there, so that for me was a sign to take profit. So I just mark it out, take profit here, and was already break even after this first, let's call it what it is, partial right here. And then I'm just looking for more. Here, we trade into it, we close, well, we open below it actually, and then we close below it. Okay, I can hold this trade longer. And then what is the next take profit? Well, as I explained, previous day low right here. So definitely a very good trade for a day like today. And I know people are probably going to wonder, well, yeah, 10 a.m. But as I explained, for me, the revised consumer sentiment is not a high impact news, right? On Forex Factory, I believe it shows up as an orange news. For me, it is not a high impact news, does not provide consistent moves. But if you were looking at the time of that news, whether you were looking at it for news or for power of three purposes, what do I mean by that? Of course, I do mean in terms of the candle structure. Well, you would have seen we had a nice open high, and then we flipped the opening price to return lower. So that was a clear confirmation of your direction. Definitely a very nice movement in this sense. We also had another short opportunity, and you might ask me, hey, is this a good trade right here? I don't believe so. You're late, right? You're trading pretty much with your final objective being previous day low. Now, of course, looking back, you're like, oh, well, look, we ran almost, what is that? Almost 100 points below previous day low. Yes. But were the probabilities telling you that there was a high chance we run here? Well, actually, pretty much, because we did have a very nice low here. Saw a few people talking about the earnings low as well, right? Which were our Thursday lows, and not those ones right here as an important point. I don't regard it with any importance, to be honest. I believe I should, but I do not. As we can see right here, after previous day low, you have one clear objective, but even then, like, yes, this trade offers enough risk to reward, but you guys know me. I don't like taking trades in the bottom side of the range, well, in the extreme. And if you need a rule for that, my framework is pretty much from the news high to previous day low, sorry. And I like to use quarters as seen here. Let me just try and be semi-precise. Well, I'm one tick above, so let's do that. All right, and bring in my quarters. My highest probability entries will be here and here, right? In the first two quarters, this is 0.5, the midpoint. So I'm not looking for continuation entries. And this is also why I'm definitely tired after today. But this is how I scale into positions. I always look to scale above 50% of the distance from my framework to my target, not my entry to my target, the height of my framework. And the framework is the move I'm predicting, the move I'm looking to trade, which in this case was this high is not going to be broken, and we're going to go to previous day low, which was my final objective, right? So if I'm looking to scale into a position here, I won't scale past this. And usually you'd want to look to partial only past the midpoint of it. But in this case, there is no way in hell I am not taking 1.89R on a day that has already run, I think it was almost 200 handles pre-open. 150 handles pre-open. So very aggressive day in that sense. Any stats on hitting those earnings high and low? None at all. None at all. I don't have any data available for earnings on Rice Statistics. Maybe that could be something for the future, right? How do earnings numbers impact the markets? But it's highly dependent on a bunch of things, and the earnings numbers are always different, right? How do you quantify what is a positive earning and what is a negative earning and what is a neutral earning? So definitely some stuff that could be gone, that we could go into there, but definitely not a priority for Rice Statistics. What I did want to discuss is basically the next setup as well. Is this setup a good setup? I don't believe on its own it is a good setup at all. Of course, if you're already in this trade, you should definitely hold it. But if we look right here and we look at the fair value gap, at the inversion fair value gap, and then order block, your stop's all the way up here at the swing high, sorry. And your target would be opening range low, but you already reached previous day low. You already reached the low. This is previous week's low, I believe, right here. Well, you know what? Let's make it simple. I don't want to think. I want to see. Hello. Thank you, candle ranges, for showing me previous week's low. Okay, no, previous week's low is way further. It is the current week's low. Sorry about that, guys. So the low of this Wednesday. I don't know why I was thinking was last week. So the current week low right here and then you're telling me you want to keep shorting past that? That just doesn't make any sense for me. Definitely not. I was just thinking along the lines of treating it like a news candle, data high and low. No, we don't have any data about that, not specifically. They aren't classified as news events, so we didn't add them to our pool. Could be something interested to notice out. Do a little backtesting. If it's something worth it, I'll definitely be happy to provide some data about it. Just to get back on track, this setup, definitely not it. This setup was a little less worse because at least we did not reach previous day low. But as I said, you're in the final quarter of reaching your objective. It is a very, very risky trade for barely any upside. So truly more so that you would have missed the trade in this case. Now the PM session, what can I look to trade? I can look to trade 2 PM power of 3, and I can look to trade lunch high and low. In this case, after this overextension, it'd be very nice to look for a bearish movement. Now, I did trade this with Julian actually today. Truth is, it was just a very slow grind up. I'm going to switch it to bullish, right? Because you'd be looking for retracement higher. And in this case, you had a beautiful, beautiful entry, right? The first entry that showcased was right here. You did have, if you consider this a breaker, right? Swing low to swing high. But as I said, the indicator does invalidate these because the high of the swing low candle is higher than the breaker. So it is just not pretty on a chart and not very efficient in that sense. What about the long around 1104 since we created SMT below previous day low? Well, right here, this, 1104. So after taking out opening range low, we had SMT right here. I can point it out. This was actually a good long in my book. Thank you. I almost missed it. As I said, pretty tired here. But you had a really good long here. 100%. I actually took this trade. So thank you for actually making me notice. Right here, you have fair value gap. You have the order block. You have the inversion fair value gap. You have a very clear entry. But where would your target be? Well, I wouldn't look to partial anywhere before this, right? I'm looking at this full range. Well, am I going to wait until 2.8R? Not necessarily. So how do I find a partial in a range like this? Well, I'm going to use premium and discount. And I'm going to look at the first premium in efficiency, which in this case is this order block right here, this bearish order block. Now, does this bearish order block offer enough risk to reward? No, it does not. Which means what? Well, I have to go break even. So this instead is a break even line. So this is why I went break even. But then my target would still be all the way up here, and I'd be holding until this reaches. So I actually got broken even in profit because whenever I get forced to go break even, instead of just going break even, I like to start trailing. So as you can see, I went break even here. We had a little consolidation. Once we broke back above this consolidation, I moved my stop right here. So I ended up making a little bit of profit here, but this is truly just a break-even setup. That is the best I can say here. It was just a failed long. We needed to at least get all the way up here. But if we look at the movement, I mean, you still had a decent 50-point upside, a little bit over 50 points. Did the same action? Awesome. So in those types of trades where taking a long here after a large expansion lower, that was low resistance. It's like I expect it to be slower. I expect it to be high resistance, right? Slower, a lot of retracement. So what am I going to do? I'm just going to trail aggressively, right? Get me in and out of this trade, especially if I can make money. So instead of getting stopped out, or instead of taking a partial at 1.2R, which is just not worth my time, I gave myself the chance for upside all the way to 2.8 and ended up closing a little under 1R, which is shit return. This is pretty much break even, but I gave myself the opportunity for upside. Hope that makes sense to you guys. Hello. I would not have taken that trade without SMT. Why? What I always say is there can be one thing wrong with your setup, which will make it a little worse, right? Instead of being an A+ setup, it's going to be an A setup. And what is that? Well, it can be anything. There can be one thing wrong. And today, the thing that was wrong, if you were looking for longs, is we just ran, at that point, we were pretty much 300 and something handles. We are extremely bearish in a bearish trend today. So I'm trading counter trend, and we already overextended by quite a bit. What does that mean? shitty market conditions for a long. Does that mean my setup is bad or that it won't work? Not at all. But it does mean that I want to de-risk, right? I don't want to be taking risk on that trade. So at that point, everything else needs to be perfect. See, as you can see, everything else was perfect. I was also half risk on this trade because I didn't want to dig into my profits from this one, but I still did trade that one. A lot of evals today, a lot of movement in that sense. So definitely very nice there. And just to get back on track, the PM trade right here, you did have a PM long. You could have been targeting lunch high, for example. Definitely a good trade in my book, but for me, a good trade overall, sorry. But for me, I like to trade lunch trades and PM continuations rather than PM reversals, right? Using the 2 a.m. candle. If you did look for a long in this area, I do believe that it is a good trade because you would be looking for another retracement. The only truth is you're trading in consolidation, right? So the only real reason why you should be looking for a trade here is if you miss a morning trade. And if you miss the morning trade, you shouldn't be looking for a trade there. Just a vicious circle. Never-ending vicious circle in that sense. But there definitely were some opportunities, even though it took, how long is that? 2 hours and 5 minutes to get there. It was still valuable. And as I said, if you do consider these breaker blocks, you did have an earlier entry. Even right here, actually, you would have had an earlier entry, and your 3 PDRA stop loss rule, you have 3 fair value gaps in a row. Makes it pretty simple. So you had another trade with great return. They actually have the exact same risk to reward, which is pretty fucking awesome if you ask me. That rarely happens. So you did have some PM opportunities to look for longs. Why would you look for shorts below previous day low after this whole run? So the only way I'd be looking for trade in the PM, it'd be a long. Even if we had a lunch framework, I would not look to continue. We ran way too much. We hit all our objectives on the Friday, the last day of the month. Plenty of reasons right there. But definitely some nice opportunities that were offered after a possible break-even / small win in the morning. Was a lot of SMT too, which I'm not discussing on at this moment, but just watch this. This is the only SMT you need to notice, right? From the low of the morning session and the low that was formed during lunch. This gives you great insight to look for these PM longs as well. Hello. Do we have any questions? Pretty simple day in terms of trending. Once again, I feel like I've been saying this for the last 2 weeks. Very clear daily frameworks, very high resistance delivery. But if you were in that morning short, you may have noticed that you didn't have to think much, just had to hold and wait. And doing some back testing, can you review 8-125 once the recording is done if you have time? I won't be able to tonight. But if you keep a note of that, I'd be more than happy to do it anytime next week that we have a PA review. Tonight won't be available, but more than happy to. So keep note of that, or I don't know how, right? Maybe put a reminder for the Monday PA review, right? Next week is going to be the statistical monthly outlook, and we're going to have NFP week. So if you want to put a reminder or something, I'd be more than happy to do so. Is there a specific peer review you'd suggest for understanding how to ID a trending day? Let me head over to the resources tab, and on the top section, you can see all the tags, right? Completed and progress planning, open suggestions. You can also click on educational content. And that's funny because if I scroll down, I can see how to identify trending days beforehand. That's a good one. I got you, Speaker. You'll find it under resources. That was just my cocky way of explaining that it was in resources. I like to be detailed for the people on YouTube. Trending days, honestly, I could just give you a drawing. See this? This is the daily opening price, okay? Not 10 a.m. open. Daily open. Okay, this is a daily open. What you want to see is trend one way, return to daily open, keep going. You see this, and you see a large overnight range. There you go. Trending day. That's what I'm looking for. Hello. I thought it would be in there, just haven't spent much time in there. Sorry for being lazy. Dude, don't say that. I was fucking around. I was joking with you. You're not lazy. I'm more than happy to repeat myself. If I was not happy with repeating myself, well, I would not have created a Discord community to share my insight, you know? So I'm more than happy. Don't feel bad about it. This is why the resources section was created. So instead of re-explaining it to you for 30 minutes, I can just tell you, hey, look, the video's in there, you know? So never feel bad about that, all right? I'm always asking you guys to ask questions and always saying I'm open to it. I don't want you guys to feel bad for asking them after, hopefully. Hello. Any final questions before we call it a night? That PM session long. You would enter before 1:30. Yes and no. So it would be this framework with an entry at 1:30. Where is the 1:30 candle? Because the 1:30 candle just was at the same exact area. So if you just move it to the right, it would be that same framework. Just wait for 1:30 pretty much. Hello. So generous with your knowledge and insight. Thank you. I appreciate that very much. For now, we're going to call it a night. I'm sorry, guys. Super tired. Got a lot of work to do tonight. So we're going to call it here. Very happy to see you all on this Friday evening. You guys have a great weekend. You know the drill. Recharge, relax, get ready for a banger week. NFP week next week, coming close to contract rollover. Definitely going to be a fun one, I believe. Goodbye, guys. Have a great night. Good weekend. Enjoy.